Dear friends, I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital, and I'm doing a third and final general program about cancer. I have tried to put together a lot of information that you will not find, at least compressed in very few segments, about cancer, a deadly disease that we all fear. A word you don't even want to listen to. That's what we're going to be talking about today, as we have had in two previous programs about cancer that you can connect if you just follow me. I felt that every time we have cancer, every time you want to read about cancer, you find so many dispersed information here and there, talking about this, talking about that, that's difficult to put everything under a single lens and be able to analyze, to understand. That's probably the key word, understanding cancer, in order to see what can we do, how can we defend ourselves, how we can fight it off, and finally, how we can defeat it. And all this information I have gathered through many years. I put a lot of personal experience in these podcasts, but I also have read and reviewed the current terms of medical research in this 2023 when we're talking about this. So bear that in mind. And what I discovered is that, which I said it many times, I'm now retired, a teacher at the School of Medicine of the University in Baja California, medical school. And I used to tell students that as much as we know, as so much science as we have, so many research papers as we can read, there's not a definite definition of what cancer is. So we go by what it does, by describing the effects of the cancer in order to try to figure out what it is. And we know that it's very important that cancer doesn't come from the outside. It is an internal uprising of a group of cells that will reproduce and create a tumor thanks to a number of genetic damages that have occurred in our lifetime. And those genetic damages, which by the way can be avoided, okay, we have said it many times, genetic doesn't mean you're doomed. Genetics means that you have that possibility. And depending on what you do with your life, how you treat your body, those possible bad traits can manifest or can be suppressed, and you're free of disease. So, nevertheless, those genetic changes can produce this group of cells that will sabotage everything in the body, that will clump together, that will grow without any possibility of control, and finally to detach from the original tumor and go and get secondary tumors anywhere else in the body. And we have also said that this, which is called metastatic disease, is what kills over 90% of people. If cancer didn't spread, we'd be telling a total different story. But cancer spreads, and it can spread to the liver, to the lungs, to the brain, to the bones, you name it, and kill you. So that is what the end result of cancer growth and spreading could be as end of the story. So with everything that we know about how it can be originated, how things can happen, we have discussed the strategies that we have to do in order to avoid this in the first place, and second, to try to understand them to create strategies that are going to help us to fight off if worse comes to worse and we get a diagnosis of cancer. At this point, I want to talk about something very important. Once anybody tells you you have cancer, it's very important to understand that we have alternatives. Alternative cancer therapy has been vilified by some people because they just don't understand the concept. Alternative means that if I have a problem, I have to review each and every possibility that I have to solve it. Even something very small that can contribute to a small percentage of my cure is important because every point counts. I'm going to give you an example. Have you noticed that airplanes today have these wing tips that they didn't have in the past? Well, they are to save fuel. That's what they tell us. And how much fuel you save if you have these tiny little things on the tip of the wings? Well, some people tell you 3%, some people tell you 5%. And you say, well, if it is so little saving, why do they bother? Well, because an airplane can fly many hours every year, consume a lot of fuel, and 5% of thousands of gallons of fuel can make a difference. Makes a difference in contamination, makes a difference in money spent. So for airlines, it produces a big saving and saves the world a lot of CO2. The same thing with cancer therapy. People tell me, well, I heard about this juice or this herb or this thing, but it has a small chance of helping. Well, if it is inexpensive, it is easy to do, if it doesn't pose any problem, why don't you do it? Let's say some people are going to tell you you have to increase your vitamin A if you have a cancer, so why don't you take carrots or carrot juice? Well, that's easy to do. I could do it. And if it contributes 1% to my improvement, that 1% is a welcomed 1%. So alternative means everything I can do. Everything. And that includes surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, diet, detoxification, anti-inflammatory strategies, whole body hyperthermia, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, etc. All of them are alternatives. Alternative means all the possible ways to solve a problem or that can contribute to solve a problem. Alternative doesn't mean either or. In other words, you might choose the route of therapy you think works better for you, and do some alternatives that are going to help you. You could talk with your doctor and say, doctor, if I take this juice, if I do this, is there any problem? The most possible answer is, okay, go ahead and do it. If it can help you, do it, even if it's a small percentage. So we have to know that, because that will allow you, once you have cancer, once you're given that diagnosis, to sit at the table with your family or at the desk with your physician and say, doctor, what else can I do to help myself? This is important because, as I told you, you're going to have a disease, you're going to have to fight off, and every single thing that can help you to feel better, to shorten the therapy, to reduce the cost, whatever, is going to be a welcome add-on to your therapy. The next point is also very important. The huge leaps forward in cancer success came from early diagnosis. When pap smears started being done, mortality of cervical cancer dropped by 80%. Just because women were having a pap smear that allowed to locate a very early cancer, cervical cancer, to the point that just by removing it or just by attacking it, you could be cured, which is a word we do not use frequently in cancer. Cervical cancer is one of the few cancers that can be cured without any question, just if you do a regular pap smear. A big drop in cancer mortality with breast cancer has come thanks to awareness, self-examination, imaging. Do whatever you want to make sure that you discover a problem in your breast as soon as possible, because it can be so small that you can remove it all, or if you don't, it could be so small or so early that simple therapies are going to give you an 80% success rate. Again, the big advancement was the possibility of an early diagnosis. The possibility of looking, for example, for H. pylori in your intestinal tract can help you to erase the possibility of a stomach cancer. Human papillomavirus, just the vaccine of human papillomavirus is going to keep away a lot of oropharyngeal cancers and, of course, cervical cancer. So those are the concepts that we have to start putting together, because that's going to create a much better perspective on how to face cancer from the beginning. And the beginning is when you don't have any symptom, when you don't know you have a cancer, when you're completely 100% healthy. Then is when all your strategies to plan your life not to have cancer begin. You don't have to wait and do whatever you want until you go to the doctor and they tell you, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have a cancer. No, you can start thinking of it. You might be a 25-year-old person working every day, leading a happy life, planning your marriage, whatever. You have to start thinking, what if I get cancer? So I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to do this. And if you follow these 3 programs that we have done, you might have a lot of clues in how to do it. Let's keep talking about this, because it's very important for everyone. You are with Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital. And here, we're completing our series of 3 podcasts about cancer. General information about cancer. We're not talking about skin cancer, we're not talking about lung cancer. We're talking about cancer, period. Because as much as you can read or hear that cancers are 100 different types, from leukemia to a sarcoma to breast cancer, etc., all of them can be lumped together in what makes them the same disease, in what makes them similar. And those characteristics are very important, because those characteristics are what makes them feared and deadly. So we're going to concentrate on cancer. And whatever cancer you mention will share this characteristic. Okay? The internal uprising of a group of cells, the lack of control for harmonic growth and reproduction, the eternal survival of its cells because they refuse to retire or to self-destroy when need be, and the ability to go to a different organ and create secondary called metastatic tumors that will surely be a cause of death. When we see metastatic disease, we kind of let our arms down because we know we're facing the most difficult part of the disease. And being as it is, a deadly disease, we have to understand that we have to set everything in motion in order to be ready to fight the cancer. Okay? We need awareness. We need surveillance. We need proactiveness. Cancer can get anyone, actually, in our time, at any age. So that is very important to know, because we all have to be aware, all of us have to be watchful, and all of us have to be proactive in order to say, okay, I'm going to be watching you. If gene failure is the possible main cause of this distortion, of this internal uprising, because proto-oncogenes that promote growth have been damaged, and they promote growth and growth and growth. And tumor suppressor genes are also damaged, the ones that should stop abnormal growth from happening. Then we have to think, how did this happen? Gene damage can happen when very active, very nasty, toxic molecules within the body are generated and hit any of these very fragile molecules of DNA. And that happens through free radical generation. We have, again, two systems. One that generates energy in the body but produces a byproduct, which is the free radical, potentially nocive. And on the other hand, an antioxidant system that gets rid of these free radicals. What we have to do, if we're smart, we have to make sure that we get clean fuel. You follow me? If you have heating in your house and you have an old faulty heater with old technology and you use coal or oil or anything like that, you're going to develop a lot of unwanted byproducts. You have to be cleaning and washing, and everything is going to be dark and black, etc. But if you have a state-of-the-art, let's say electric or gas type of heating, everything is going to be clean. So it's not a matter of cleaning, it's a matter of not generating garbage, not creating toxics. And that happens if we choose what we eat, if we choose what fuel we're going to put in our body. If we eat clean, organic, good foods, we're going to generate a lot less toxic material than if we keep on eating garbage or just toxics. If you smoke, if you have alcohol in large quantities, if you do a lot of the bad foods, bad oils, bad everything, you're not going to be creating a clean system. You're going to be generating a lot of free radicals. Your chances of developing a deadly disease of a cancer are going to increase because you have more chances of damaging, of mutating your genes. On the other hand, we have an antioxidant system that should block those. Once again, antioxidants are in the food we eat. So, if we have a clean lifestyle, if we breathe good air, if we have good physical activity, if we live cleanly, period, all that is going to generate a good antioxidant system. And we know that a lot of foods are very active as antioxidants. Pomegranate, for example, has been mentioned many times. But don't run to a store and buy a jar. No, wait for the season. You see, with many foods, don't get a bottled thing you don't know what you're getting. But if you just have pomegranate every time that's in season, then you're going to be having a great thing, because you're going to have those fantastic red petals of juice and eat them. And you can freeze them if you can have them later on. But don't buy anything pre-packed. Food is food. Anything in a can or anything like that, anything that has a label to read is not food. So if you do that kind of thing, you eat organic, you eat things that have not been overwhelmed with chemicals and flavoring, and etc., those things are toxic. They not only generate more free radicals, but they don't contribute to the antioxidation. But when you have a healthy system, you should have very few free radicals with a very active antioxidant. And that is going to create a healthy cell. The possibilities of damaging or mutate a gene are a lot less. So we're going to be healthier. Statistics begin to prove that people that eat organic, that choose foods, that think twice about what they put in their mouths, live longer with less disease. I don't think it's difficult to understand. It's like your car, it's like your heating at home, it's like anything like that. Depending on the quality of the fuel and depending on how you clean whatever residues are, you're going to be healthy. And of course, the less there is to clean, the less effort you have to do to clean. If you keep your house clean, if you watch what you do at home, you don't have to go and vacuum clean and scrub and do anything every day. You might have to do it once a week, but you have to keep it clean. If you remove your shoes before entering your house, instead of entering with everything you picked up on a sidewalk, that's a great idea. It's not in our culture, but we should adopt it. You don't have to bring anything that you found in a sidewalk into your house, much less to your bedroom. You don't know what you're carrying. So leave your shoes at the entrance of the house. In America, in some places, for example, particularly when there's a lot of snow, they do that. And that keeps your house clean. That's what you have to do with your body. Keep it clean, so cleaning effort is a lot less. But the more toxics you have, the more chances you have to produce a mutation in either the genes that promote growth or the genes that stop abnormal growth. You need them healthy. And in order to do that, remove toxicity from your life. Cigarette smoke is the best example. People that smoke generate more cancers than the general population because they bring in directly the toxic into their bodies. So don't do that. You shouldn't do that. And you should tell your children, I'd love you to follow me on these 3 broadcasts. And I'd love you to discuss it and talk about it with your family, with your friends. Follow me, go to social media, get information. This is information that's so vital that we have to talk about it every day. It has to be there. Once again, we have to talk about it every day because we're going to need awareness we're going to need surveillance, and we're going to have to be proactive. It's not only knowing about it, it's not only being watchful, but it's doing something to make sure that everything around us and inside us changes for the better. And if you have cancer and you start doing that, that's going to give you that extra 3-5% survival over if you don't do anything. And that can mean a lot. So don't think, well, I already got cancer. What's the use of eating organic? What's the use of stop smoking? It can add to your well-being. It can add to your therapy. It can add to the success of your story. So think again. Watch this podcast again. Follow it. Share it. And keep on talking with you. My friends, I am Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital. We're talking cancer in general. What it is, how it develops, how it kills us, but also how we can bypass it, avoid it completely, how we can be successful in therapy by early diagnosis, by awareness, how we can begin getting alternatives, understanding for alternative all the possible ways we have to contribute to our well-being and our success. Again, alternative doesn't mean either or. You do this or you do the other. Alternative means all the possible ways you have to help a problem. All the possible ways to solve it, even if it's a small one. If you are in a financial crisis, well, selling something and make a garage sale might be a way to bring some money in. And you might say, but it's not going to solve the problem. No, but it's going to contribute. And that contribution can be the difference between failure and success. So there are many things we can do, we have to do, because many of the things that I'm telling you are also part of the prevention, are also part of why we got cancer in the first place. If we don't learn to take care of our body, to BioCare us, we're going to be sick. And I'm going to touch in a fundamental part of healthcare and fundamental in the cancer care: nourishment. Nourishment is really the foundation of resilience, fight, and recovery of any malady, any morbidity is going to be modified and affected by good nourishment or by bad nourishment, insufficient nourishment. No matter what you have, if you're sick, you need good food. And that was very well understood in America up to 1950. The mere idea of chicken broth brings you the idea that people had nutritional clues in how to approach a sick person. Now we don't care. You go to the doctor, they tell you you have cancer, you go out and stop in the first fast food joint you can find. Because you're hungry. And because, let's face it, you're used to that food. That's probably why we got sick in the first place. because we were generating with bad food a lot of free radicals that affected our genes. Our genes started working the wrong way, and now we have cancer. So, in order to be resilient, in order to be fighting off, and in order to recover, we need good nutrition. Let me tell you a small personal story. I got COVID, like many of you. And I have my physician, like many of you. My doctor is a lady doctor. And when I started being sick, the first thing she told me, she didn't talk about medication, she didn't talk about anti-inflammatory, she didn't talk about... The first thing she told me is, doctor, you want to be successful? You are going to eat what I tell you to eat. And first and foremost, you have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I'm going to give you snacks that will continue to provide your body with all the fuel and all the defenses that you need. If you stop eating, if you don't eat what I tell you to eat, things can go wrong. And she kept track. And she wrote my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner. And for a full week, I did exactly as she told me. Because I knew she was right. So I was grateful, appreciative of what she was doing, but also understanding, doctor to doctor, what she had in mind. And in 1 week, I was out of the problem. Recovering from that was a little bit lengthy, but I got over it. So that's how important it is. Now, we have a problem with cancer. Among all the tricks that cancer has under the sleeve, one is very important. Cancer patients immediately start refusing food. That is a phenomenon that, being very honest, I don't fully understand. Why people with cancer all of a sudden tell you, but I'm not hungry. And many of them is worse. They say, I don't find any food really appetizing. And some of them find food, frankly, repulsive. I know cancer patients that tell me, doctor, don't even show me that food. It makes me sick. And the family tell you, we have to fight for every little spoon. But believe me, nutrition is important. So the minute you find out you have cancer, you have to start eating well. And if you have problems, we have to see how we are going to solve them. BioCare Hospital is a full hospital. So we have assets that we can set in motion that can change completely the history of what I'm telling you. So many times I have had a patient that tells me, doctor, don't even bring food nearby because it makes me sick. And I say, don't worry, don't eat. And the family gets shocked. How come you're telling my dad not to eat when that is one of the problems? I said, don't you worry. And we place a catheter and we do intravenous nutrition. That is one of the big advancements I have seen in my professional life that can change the way cancer can evolve. Cancer therapy can evolve. Because to make things worse, patients are not only against eating, patients are not only refusing eating, but the therapy itself, people with chemotherapy, people with radiation, people with all these things, they simply cannot eat. But to be able to do full intravenous nutrition can change it all. And we started doing that, and looking at the results and see how people recover. You cannot recover if you don't have means to be recovering. But then you see how people start recovering, smiles come back, they start feeling better, and one day people tell you, you are in the office call and you're saying how you feel, how you're doing, and then before they leave they say, "Doctor, by the way, you know what's for lunch today?" Hunger comes back because healing is taking place. So that's one of the big advantages that we have. And there's medical literature that backs this up. Good nutrition improves immune performance, which is absolutely critical and crucial for cancer defeating, for cancer fighting. And this same medical literature shows evidence of better survival when nutrition is addressed correctly. And once again, sometimes it's not that you have to push the patient to eat, but you have other tricks also under the sleeve to beat the tricks of cancer. So nutrition is so important for your life, for prevention, for cancer management, for cancer recovery, for cancer everything. So don't please put it aside. Don't say, "Oh, no, it cannot be." It is that way. And I tell you because I come from the other side of the fence. I became a doctor like a regular doctor. And the first time somebody told me about nutrition, I thought, no, this cannot be. When I began working with cancer, I'm a nuclear physician, I could see who was doing better, who was doing worse. But out of the people that were improving, I saw that many of them came from one same doctor. It took me 2 seconds to get to that doctor's office and ask this doctor, "You know something the rest of us don't know. Your patients are improving with cancer. What's what you know that we don't know?" She smiled, was a beautiful medical doctor, a lady doctor, and she told me, "Nutrition." I said, "Come on, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that chicken soup is going to do the trick." But it did. So I'm not saying you drop everything else you're doing. I'm saying you are complementing. You are integrating all your alternatives in a smart way to help the patient. Because ultimately, your final goal, what we love to see, is a patient that begins improving, that begins to eat, that begins to move, that begins to smile, and live again. That is the ultimate goal. So we have to review, as I told you, with your physician, with your family, with your loved ones, what alternatives do I have, which are complementary to the other? How can I help to put everything together to have a successful outcome? That's the most important, because I always tell people, I don't care about numbers. I don't care about even statistics. I care about successful stories. I care about your personal problem, not everybody else. So let's keep on talking about this. You are with Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital. In closing, with a 3-podcast program about cancer. I'm trying to describe what is cancer, and most important, how we can fight it off, how we can go head on, how we can be successful. That's what we're going to be talking. And you can go to the links of the previous podcasts and review all of them and look at them and try to see what's good for you. And hopefully, you're going to follow me, and hopefully you're going to share all this information. And don't forget that I'm your friend, so any question, any comment that you have, I'll be very happy to answer to it. So if you have anything in mind, just write me, call me. I'll be happy to talk with you and discuss any item or answer any question that you have. Because it's a very important subject. Cancer is growing at an exponential level. And one of the reasons is because of inflammation, chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation, we have seen, can create the conditions that are going to make cancer possible. How is that? Well, because inflammation will extend cell survival in case of damage. That's one of the characteristics of cancer. Inflammation can inhibit, can block programmed cell death. Apoptosis, it's called. That's a very important cancer feature. Inflammation can facilitate, can make an easy passage of cellular elements of the body into the bloodstream and from the bloodstream into the tissues. That's a condition we need to create a metastasis. We need a cell that detaches from the original tumor, but must go through the wall of the blood vessel, of the lymph vessel, to travel to a distant organ and create a secondary tumor. That's facilitated by inflammation. Now, if we're looking at an exponential growth of cancer, you might ask where it's coming from. It might be coming from chronic inflammatory disease. We have a lot of inflammation. Nowadays that we can test for inflammatory tracers, I find that a lot of people have a small underlying lingering inflammation that could be the origin of big problems in the future. And why is that? Well, number one, because we eat inflammatory substances. Two are very important. Refined carbohydrates, white sugar in particular. Get the sugar bowl of your life. Get sugar, added sugar of your life. Whatever is naturally sweet, go ahead. It is God's creation. But don't put sugar in things. You can have honey. That's God's creation. Again, don't use sugar. And much less all the friends of sugar like corn syrup, fructose, high fructose, etc. Don't eat that. And the best way to do it is do not eat processed, packed, refined food. Buy food. Cook it. Do it yourself. You owe it to yourself. Because all these conditions have produced a metabolic disorder, which is overweight, obesity. And overweight and obesity mirror the statistics of cancer, which tells me, yes, we are right. This inflammatory condition produced by the metabolic syndrome that we're producing through the things we eat, by our overweight and so on, is the culprit of the gene damage and the environmental conditions to make cancer possible and successful. So make no mistake, simple thing like that, like added sugar, can make a difference in cancer. And the same goes for fructose or even non-caloric sweeteners. Don't eat chemicals. Eat food, real food. If it has a label, it doesn't belong in your table. It's so simple, but we have to be aware. We have to be watchful. You have to get home and say, what is this? And put it in the garbage can. That's where it belongs. 1 soda can a day means 50 pounds of sugar a year. Don't do that. Don't do that to your body. It's very toxic, it's very inflammatory. And the other one are vegetable oils. What you have to eat is God-made fats, like olive oil, lard, and real butter. Margarine doesn't exist in nature. You could go to the deepest oceans or to the highest mountains looking for margarine. It doesn't exist. It is a man's manufactured. So don't do that. If you can create a body without inflammation, you have a very resilient body against cancer. The contrary, if you are overweight, watch it. Your chances of developing this deadly disease are increasing every single day. And I want to mention another factor, that it's free. You don't even have to think, you don't have to get any money, you don't have to get any machine, you don't have to do anything, which is physical activity. We have to understand a very important fact. And please underline this phrase. The human body was created to move. How can I say that? Because 2/3 of my weight are muscle, which means this body of mine was created to move. So I have a huge number of muscles that let me run, climb, bend, do things, be very gentle or be very rough, because those muscles are for me to function. And the more I move them, the better my metabolic systems work, because they are 2/3 of my body weight. No organ is bigger than. No system is more important metabolically than our muscles. Our muscles are a true Fort Knox. There's where we keep all the valuable materials of the body. Immunity, energy, anything. That's why when we see a very sick person, we see how they lose body mass. And we say, oh, he looks so skinny, because they're losing muscle mass. And when muscle mass is being lost, beware, things are serious. And how we can keep our muscles? Move, do things, get active. You don't have to go to a gym. I hate gyms. To me, gym is a terrible excuse to justify mentally something you should be doing. But go out and walk, vacuum clean, move the furniture, mow your lawn, climb stairs, don't use the elevator. Do a lot of things, because movement is anti-inflammatory. Movement helps your insulin to work better. Movement is anti-cancerous. It is so much that physical activity is becoming now, finally, part of cancer therapies around the world, and certainly in the United States. they are discovering that patients that move do better, function better, respond better to therapy. Now, you say, a cancer patient, what can he do? He's bedridden. Well, he still can move their feet, hands, and so forth. Put your hand against their hand and say, push me. Now several times with this hand, now the other, now with your foot. Even bedridden, people can do exercise if you want to help them. There are countless resources on the web that talk about this. But just move your body. Walk to the copy machine. Walk to the water machine. Go downstairs. Don't say, tell this person. Don't dial. Go to the other person's office. Stand up. Sit down. Simple as that. Go home. Cook your food. Get the garbage out. Move. When people tell me about convenience, I said, you're killing yourself. When I look at a fast food place with a long line of people sitting in a car, they don't even bother to park and walk and order. You cannot do that to yourself. All those things, you can find them at BioCare. So I want you to call me. I want you to send me a mail. I want you to ask all the questions you want. That's free. I'll be very happy, and I hope these 3 cancer series are going to be of your liking and that you're going to be sharing with people. Till next time, I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez with BioCare Hospital.